esteemed book that stand to reason, Blacks in the Bible. We're going to get into the meat, well, some of the meat of this book. This is what I've been really looking forward to. A lot of the stuff before, laying that groundwork. Here's what I really want to get into. This is chapter 11, the Lost Book of Judah. And, pretty much just a recap, Israel was supposed to be, God's chosen people, God's holy people, the priests and all this other stuff. And, there's certain rewards that come along with that. And at the same time, there's, they would be disobeyed or punished if, if they disobeyed. Um, so, along these lines, I know that there are some people out there that even when you go to my introduction or whatever, I said that it's not curses that keep black people down. It's not anything like that. But as we'll kind of get into, if you're one of the people that kind of go along with that thing, then I guess technically I fibbed a little bit. Biblically speaking, it is kind of a curse, but it's a curse because they were God's chosen people and they disobeyed that. So even if it is a curse, you still got to admit that um, the Israelites and Jews were black and that they're God's chosen people. So, but even then, the disobedience got so bad that's pretty much what the Old Testament is all about. It's pretty much just a cycle. They would be cool for a while, they disobey, punishment, cool for a while, disobey, punishment. They send a judge or they'd send a prophet or something like that, and it was just kind of a cycle. And over time, it got so bad to where Israel split up. I think Israel was down south, Judah was up north, and like 9 of the tribes of Israel kind of set up their own little thing, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But when we look at this thing, the two main passages from the Bible to note would be Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28. This is pretty much where God states implicitly to Israel, this is what this is. And there's going to be some other things that we're going to get into, but this is the real meat of it all. And what follows in this chapter and the next few chapters is just it's not a be all end all guide. It's just something, it's like a synthesized version. This is the main stuff that gets talked about with Israel all through the Bible. So with that, we're going to get into the first one, mark, whatever, which is bondage and worldwide dispersal. Obviously, if you look at a lot of the it's pretty self-explanatory. So I'm just going to jump into a verse in Deuteronomy 28:41. It reads, "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity." And then we're going to go into another verse, Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt, captivity, again with ships, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondsmen and bondswomen, and no man shall buy you or save you." And one thing I want to kind of cap on is Egypt is not a they're not talking about a literal Egypt here. They're talking about figuratively. Egypt is often used as a like a place, a metaphor, like a place of oppression type thing. Um, we'll get into that a lot. There's like actually a whole chapter on that, and I don't want to get too deep into that. But even then, when we go down a little bit further, it says in Leviticus 26:63. Excuse me, I'm pretty much reading right out of the book. I know I said that I wouldn't try to use too many verses or whatever, but I just feel this is important. And I will scatter you among the heathen, foreigner, and will draw a sword out after you, and your land will be desolate and your cities waste. Right? So, it said, woman, you're going to go into captivity. I'm going to scatter you among the foreigner, all that other stuff. But now let's see who these foreigners are, right? Luke 21:24 reads, "And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and they shall be led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles, unto the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled." So obviously now we're talking about foreigners being spread out, and now we're seeing that the Gentiles are going to be the ones who are going to be, pretty much laying the real boot down. And obviously, when we go into, I said this earlier in the book, earlier in the series, it is Europe, Europeans. These are the Gentiles. Um, so, we're going to get into another one. Isaiah 11:12. "And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth." Right? And I think this is important, right? Because I said bondage and worldwide dispersal. And, when we talk about the four corners of the earth, I think it's important to note, like I have a little map right here. And I know you can barely see it. I mean, it'd be a lot better if you had a globe, but up top would be like Europe. If I can, up top would be Europe. And then we have Africa. You go over here and you have like South America, and up top is North America. If you draw, you could literally draw a square, four corners. If we look at the transatlantic slave trade, Europe, Africa, South America, North America. It is, or I guess maybe this way, backwards, but um, you could literally see four corners. And when we go Zechariah 8:7, it says, "I will save my people from the east country and the west country." Well, it's not really talking about a country. It's talking about two hemispheres, the eastern and the western hemisphere. Like it's all right there. So there we go with the bondage, and they are going to be dispersed against their will to four corners of the earth and two hemispheres. So another point I want to bring up is that in Deuteronomy 28:49, "The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the ends of the earth, as swift as an eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand." Now here's the thing. Obviously, one thing I want to cap on is that they say that the Bible is a book of prophecy, meaning there's stuff in here that uh, obviously, look, they talk about, but it's not going to happen until later on. And if you're one of those people that gets into the prophecy or whatever the sort, then I think that you'll find this interesting. Um, but when we look at um, lost my thought for a second. Yeah, because some people would say, well, that's Rome. I mean, that has to be Rome that they're talking about. I mean, it's the eagle and all this other good stuff, and they said it's going to be, but not really, because when we look at this, it'd be a nation, um, let's see, from the ends of the earth. Now, Rome is not the ends of the earth as far as Israel is concerned. It's right there, you know. Um, and they say a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Well, I mean, like I said, it's right there. They understood the Greek. They understood Greek. They understood Latin. You know, um, I mean, it's one of those things where even if here's the thing, like I don't speak Spanish, but I know the Spanish language. I'm at least familiar with it. But let's say 1,000 years down the line it'll evolve into something else. I'm not going to know what that language is. At the same time, let's look at this. um let's see. The only thing, when we talk about prophecy and all this other stuff, I'm thinking that the only real um, thing that the Bible could be talking about here is the U.S., right? I mean, it fits the bill perfectly. It's from, as far as they're concerned, this is the ends of the earth, right? I mean, by this time, there is no English language. It would have been foreign, completely foreign to them, So it's at the ends of the earth, and whose tongue they shall not understand, and as an eagle flieth. Like, what is our national bird or our national? It's a bird. I mean, it's an eagle. Call it coincidence. It doesn't really matter. Um, and then Jeremiah 31:10 states that God's flock will be scattered off to far off isles or islands. I mean, come on, Jamaica, Haiti, uh, all the the Bahamas. I mean, it's all islands. I mean, we're seeing that, you know, and this is why I think it's important to get to kind of base things out of the King James version, is because when we look at some of the later versions, Gentiles is just replaced by nations. All of a sudden it's everybody, and eagle has been replaced by vulture inexplicably, right? But when we look at this thing, just to recap the first sign, I'm reading this pretty much straight out the book. The Bible says that Israel, a dark-skinned people, will be transported into captivity by Europeans in ships to the four corners of the world. If I don't say anything more than that, the point has been proven. I mean, who else are we talking about here? That's Bible right there. And if you're one of those people that's like, well, I just you gotta go by the Bible and you gotta da 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 da, then point to me another people other than people that are involved in the transatlantic slave trade, black people, that this could be pertaining to. I'll wait, but I'll rest my case. I'll move on. We go to number 2, which is lost identity. Pretty much I'm just going to jump into it. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 28, verse 49, I believe. You will grope around in broad daylight like a blind person groping in the darkness, but you will not find your way. Um, and I think this is kind of interesting because, you know, when we live in a time when we have all this technology and we have, DNA mapping, they can pretty much take a swab and they could trace your whole lineage back to wherever. When we live in a time where we have internet and we can connect with anybody around the world, we can get any bit of information that we really want to, then how is it that black people we're still lost, you know? And I'm gonna get to that a little bit deeper, but when we look in Isaiah chapter 1 verse 3, even an ox knows its owner, and the donkey recognizes its master's care, but Israel doesn't know its master. My people don't recognize my care for them. So pretty much, kind of the same thing. I mean, there's a lot of I mean, I guess say there's a lot of good stuff going on, that I say black folks just aren't really privy to right now. Gosh, I mean, there's so much, and I'm just thinking, like, these thoughts are just kind of flooding into my head. Like, talk about this, talk about that, talk about this, da da da. Now we're getting into a lot of the social stuff that I'd love to just dig into, but I know I got to stay on track with this. Oh yeah, and this coming up verse is going to be one of the ones that'll probably set me off. But Psalms 83, 3 through 4 states, "They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, and that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." Right? So pretty much, when we look at this thing, it's almost like, I mean, just look at a lot of the stuff that's happened since black people have been here. All the Oh my God. I just want to get set off right now. But pretty much you look at, slavery and the Willie Lynch letter. Like, just read the Willie Lynch letter and you'll understand pretty much a lot of this stuff. It'll just become apparent to you. But if you want to know a little bit more about what's kind of just irking me, what I really want to talk about, get into Willie Lynch, Black Wall Street, the Reconstruction era stuff, the civil rights movement. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that goes into this, which kind of leads to the main point of the book. Hosea 4:6 state, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." That's it. Pretty much, that's what uh, that was the question kind of laid down at the start of the book. My people are. I mean, that's why God's people perish. Lack of knowledge. We don't know this stuff, and not just the biblical stuff, but there's a lot of social stuff that's going on that we're not really aware of. Um, and but oh god, I'm getting fired up. But I know I gotta go on because I gotta keep this relatively short. But we're gonna go on to number 3, which is byword. Deuteronomy 28:37 states that Israel will become an occasion of horror, a proverb, and an object of ridicule, a byword, to all the peoples who the Lord will drive you. This is echoed again in 1 Kings 9:7, 2 Chronicles 7:20. Then I will remove you from my land that I have given you. I will abandon this temple I have consecrated with my presence, and I will make you an object of mockery and ridicule amongst the nations. Um, Pretty much, I mean, this is pretty simple, right? We will be known as a byword. If you look at anybody, any other people, if you think about Italian people, I mean, they call you Italian because you have your roots in Italy, you know. And this kind of and it's the same way with Germans or Mexicans or whoever else. But when we look at this thing, and you ask black people, where are you from? I'm from Memphis. I'm from Georgia. I'm from, New Orleans, or I'm from California, or I'm from New Mexico, or whatever. Like, that's not it. Who are you? Where are you from? And like the best you can give me is a state that, I mean, you're the oldest people in the world, but yet you identify with like Memphis. And not the Memphis in Egypt, but like Memphis here, you know. Which is a problem. And along with that comes a lot of different ways of trying to identify people. We call it black, and apparently now we're African American. Before we were Negroes, we're colored, we're black, and I guess now we're African Americans. Like, we're all, But the main thing is the insults, right? Because we're talking about mockery. I'm not gonna go through, but there's just a lot of negative stuff that's just equated with black people that goes along. But the main thing is the dreaded N word. We can't talk about the N word. We can't say nigger or nigga, or does it have an ER or an AH? And how potent is it? And how potent should it be? And I think I did like a little blog or something on that a while ago. But and I use the word, but I don't want to get into it. But for good, bad, or indifferent, this if we can package and sell the dreaded N word, you can make billions, billions, and we'll talk about billions a little bit later on in the book. But we're gonna get into the fourth, which is religious. Now, come on. I, this is one of those things where I feel like I shouldn't even waste 2 or 3 pages of the book talking about, but it's got to be talked about. Pretty much being the first people on earth, obviously the first spiritual people on earth. We're the first people to walk and talk with God. Even then when we look in Genesis, God will walk and talk with him in the cool of the day. Seeing that God is a spirit, you're walking and talking with a spirit. One can see that man's earliest black ancestors were spiritual people. And if you don't believe that, please dig into some of the ancient African stuff, ancient Egypt, but oh God, I want to go off right now, but I gotta stay focused. But the main thing is that we're so spiritual. We get into everybody's religion. You have black Buddhists, black Catholics, Protestants, South American, religions, the voodoo and all the, like, just a bunch of I mean, it's all beautiful, and it's all forms of spiritual expression, but we're in there. We're all over the place. But the Bible records in Deuteronomy, getting back on track, I believe it's verse 36, 28, 36. The Lord will exile you and your king to a nation unknown to you or your ancestors. There in exile you will worship gods made of stone and wood, or wood and stone. And we're going to go on to another one, which is Deuteronomy 28:64. For the Lord will scatter you among the nations from one end of the earth to the other. Bondage, worldwide dispersal. There you will worship foreign gods that neither you nor your ancestors have known, gods made of wood and stone. Um, Pretty much when they really mean, I mean that's kind of self-explanatory, but when they say wood and stone, what they're kind of talking about is you'll worship things that'll do nothing for you. Right? Like I could have a rock. I don't even have a rock or a stick, but here we go. I got a pencil. If I worship this, it's not gonna do nothing for me. Wood and stone, you know. And even then, I don't want to get too deep into this, but even then, I mean, I wrote a book on the Bible, and when I look at it, I mean, let's get into it. When we talk about even Jesus, right? When we look at the modern day image of Jesus, he would have looked nothing. He would have looked. This modern depiction looks nothing like what a historical Jesus would have looked like. When it says that you will worship gods that are just foreign to you, that you don't even, it might seem crazy, right? But not just the vision, not just the appearance of this modern day God, whatever that we're worshiping is different, but even the name, and I'm gonna get into it right now. Pretty much, if you go to Acts 26:13 through 15, this is where Paul kind of gets his revelation or whatever. At midday, O king, I saw in the way a light from heaven, above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me and them which journeyed with me. Excuse me. And when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me and saying in Hebrew tongue, Saul, Saul, why have you persecuted me? It is hard for me to kick against the pricks. And I said, who are you? And he said, I am Jesus, whom thou persecutes. Now, the first thing I want to point out is he spoke in Hebrew tongue. If you look at the Hebrew language, there has never been, there is not, and there never will be a J. Right? So, if you want to talk about a foreign God that they would have no concept of, like, they're bringing in like a name for a letter or whatever that doesn't even compute to them. It's not even in their realm of awareness. Matter of fact, J, the letter J doesn't come into existence till like 1500 years after this would have taken place, at least. Um, but I don't want to go too deep into that. But it's a lot. To kind of sum it up, to kind of wrap it all up, in Ezekiel 16 it reads, "You built yourself a chamber, and put upon a pavilion or a high place in every public square. At the head of every street you erect your pavilion, and you disgrace your beauty when you spread your legs to every passerby and multiplied your promiscuity." So pretty much it's gonna say, look, you're gonna build up all these high places, right? You're gonna build up all these little temples. You're gonna and they're gonna be all over. They're gonna be visible. They're gonna be in the community. They're gonna be here, but they're not gonna do nothing for you. Matter of fact, not only are they not gonna do anything, but most of the time they're gonna be pretty destructive. And when we talk about the prototypical black community, what are we talking about here? We're talking about liquor stores and churches. You know, and I can go. Oh man, I could get into this. Um, but you know what? I've kind of decided within myself that just this one, um, just this one mark is so important, not only to this book and everything I'm trying to present, but I say to black people as a whole that I'm going to pretty much dedicate an entire book just to this, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the churches, and there's a lot of ways, not just, I'll say, ethnically or whatever, um, as far as how people look at the Bible, that it just isn't correct. And I haven't found anything so far that kind of puts it all in a concise way, like I've done with this here. But with that, I hope that you've kind of learned a little bit of something. Hope that you've you know got a little something to munch on mentally. With that, I'm out. This is Stand to Reason, Blacks in the Bible. We're gonna get on to chapter 12, which is influence, next. So stick around, stay tuned. Twitter, Facebook, blog, fun stuff. And my shameless plug is over. I'm out.